Hi Kim, this is Stephen with Fairs Management Interactive, better known as Fairs MI, and here is a real basic, very casual video just to get you and your team a little bit of a preview of how your own software works. It's online now and ready for you to use. So let's just get started. This is how your screen's going to appear when you first go to your website address. One of the things you may want to do is you can X out this layers command, which we'll learn about that a little bit later. That just gets the screen clear. And then we're going to look at the basic areas of controls. On the left is where most of your controls of the actual floor plan take place and how you create the floor plan. Up here are mostly the tools that you would see on other traditional softwares. And then on the right is your customization and your affecting the color and font size and things like that. Now, one thing I will say is that you'll see a lot of controls here that you don't need to use. And this is because we've had the software for 20 years and gone through a few versions, but with each generation of new Fairground Manager, there's been more requests for additional controls and customization. But really, there's only basically 5 tool skills that you'll need to learn to do a complete layout of an indoor event or an outdoor event. So let's get started on the left hand side. First is the plan control, and this is where all of your areas come from right here. You have your all grounds, and then we have some close-up views, and then we have your building views. Now, you can later on give us some preferences for more close-ups, and with those and with the ones we have here, you can label them any way you like, or rather you can tell us what you want them to label. So in all this, you don't have to do any setups. We do it. You tell us on an email, and I'll show you how to do that in terms of requesting different close-ups, how that works. But if we just click on the all grounds, you'll see now the first thing we'll learn how to do is to zoom in and zoom out and pan. So if you hold your control key down and use your mouse wheel, you can zoom in and zoom out. You may notice there's no cars or anything here, and this is because we have photoshopped them out, so you have a complete layout, or let's say a very clear layout to put your different objects on. Now, for your close-ups, we'll hit the RV park there. And here again, you'll see it isolates a view. So if you have a special use area, then it's much easier to use it here rather than have a very small layout on a very large map. And again, you can request any kind of close-up you like. It usually takes about 24 hours to get it to reappear on this list. And the close-ups, frankly, are even a higher resolution than the larger maps. All right, so now, one thing we want to tell you is that everything is saved and is opened in terms of the layout maps, not these maps, but the layouts of booths and such, onto your own computer. So if you were to go up here and do a file, save as, you're going to want to save it in every case to device, and you're going to open, if it gives you a choice, you're going to open from device, and then from there, of course, it will go to your own computer or network. Let's go ahead and take a look at this list again. Now for your buildings, we're going to go ahead and add all your buildings, and if you go here and open this one up, you'll see this is how it normally appears. It's empty, and you would begin by creating a layout here. But when you're first starting, we do the layouts for you so that you don't have to start learning from scratch. You can actually start being productive, planning your shows, and then as we go along, that's what I mean, it's an incremental process. As you go along, we help you create more skills and do more things, but the first thing is we want you to always be productive. We want you to always be working on things that are tasks that you actually have to do. So for example, let's go ahead and open the Sierra building, and you'll see I've kind of mislabeled this, and this will probably be changed by the time we do our learning session where we learn a little bit more. But in this case, Typically what folks normally do is, let's say, well, let's look at here first. Sorry, this is a loose casual one, so I might have to back up a little bit. Here you see it grabs this entire group of booths, which we call a pod. And if I do my up and down arrow on my keyboard, it grabs that entire group and moves them. Same thing with your table setups. It goes up and down. But when we want to do an individual booth, let's say this booth 100, you'll see that if we click it twice, it will just outline that one booth. And you can see you can drag it around, you can rotate it, you can do anything you want with it, and that's your active booth. So let's go ahead and affect this one for a second. Let's say we want to make it a 10 by 20. So I'm going to click that booth and I'm going to hit my delete key and delete it. Now there's a lot of keyboard shortcuts, and I'm going to send you what we call a cheat sheet that shows you the different keyboard shortcuts that help your productivity. So if I wanted to make this a 10 by 20, I would go ahead and go over here, and I'm going to say I want the width to be 20 feet. This is your booth control, by the way. And when you click and open this, it actually automatically opens up your booth control. So I'm going to make it 20 feet, and I'm just going to hit OK. Now the one thing you'll notice, it wants to auto size the numbers, and this is to optimize that for you. But in most cases, people like to keep it the same size as the other numbers. So now now this is where your customization takes place on the right hand side. So I click on text, and I happen to know it's a 4-point font, so I hit that, hit my enter key, and there it is. Now one of the keyboard shortcuts is my favorite, Control Z, which is undo. So if I hit Control Z, I'm back there where I started. Now when we want to move this around, if we want to put it back or put it over here or put it over here, it automatically locks to that, so you don't have to be so precise. Oops. And one of the reasons you can use this is sometimes it's just as easy to lock it. You can drag it over and lock it to a by 20 by 20, and you'll normally have to resize the font. Now where this is really nice and easy is, this isn't a realistic example, but let's say you got a booth that's less than 10 feet, or at the end of a row there's less than 10 feet and you want to create a partial booth. Now you can move it over, and let's say I move it over that far, and I'll see over here on my booth control it lets me know it's a 9 by 10 instead of a 10 by 10. Again, I'm going to hit my Control Z. Alright, I'm going to resize the text again to 4 points. So now we're going to go ahead and sell this booth. So if I click on this booth, which it's active now, and I go down to my exhibitor data, and I can use whatever I want for these fields. These are just suggested, but I'm going to go, exhibitor is John Deere, and it's long, whoops, that's not very well good spelling, but anyway, there you go, even worse. Okay, and then I'm going to say lawn tractors, and I may say this is private sales as opposed to games or food or something like that. Now when I hit OK, it becomes part of this drawing when I save my drawing. And if I click on this booth here, you'll see there's nothing in that field, and when I go back here, it's here. Typically what you're going to want to do is color code the sales, the sold booths, and you may want to color code it for the type of booth it is. So again, we can go to our customization, hit the style. I'm going to go ahead and just choose blue, and I like to keep a black outline, so I go to black and I hit apply, and so now there we are. So once I do that again and sell it, it's part of the plan. If I go to report at any given time, whether I sell the booth or not, if I've populated that booth and populated other booths, when I hit report, it will create an Excel spreadsheet of your exhibitor list, and it includes a booth inventory in terms of sizes and square feet and things like that. And when you do that, an Excel spreadsheet will download to wherever downloads take place on your browser. I suggest that you set your browser to ask you where to download each time, because it may vary for the show. All right. Now, again, for our example, let me go up here and just show you again. That was an example. So you have the blank, and then you have the example booth. Now, another thing we want to look at is how to make copies. Let's go and back to this example here. So let's say that I want to put a booth right here in the middle, and I click on that booth there. It's active, and we're going to say, well, we know that our highest booth number is 47, so I'm going to make this number 48, and I want to make it 20 feet long. Now, if I hit OK, it will actually make that booth 20 feet long, and it'll go over top of your 48. Whoops, we have a 48, don't we? Is that 48? Yep. So we're going to make this 49. Sorry. Make this 49. And we're going to make the length 20. And if I hit OK, again, like I started to say, it'll make that booth 20 feet long. But we want to make a copy, so we hit New, and it puts it to the right-hand side and downward. And now again, we can drag it into place, and there we go. Now, let's say I want to make that a stage, so I can go ahead and type in stage. This time I'm going to hit OK because I want to affect that one booth. Now, let's say I want the font a little bit bigger, or for some reason I want it to go the other direction. I go back to my customization tool, and I'm going to go ahead and make it 4 points. So you can see it's crowded in there. So this little tool right here turns that font the other way for you. Okay, so now let's look at some of the different things we did. We looked at the example where we just kept the booth number, and the only place that we indicated the vendor was in our exhibitor data, and then we use color coding to indicate a sold booth. But I saw in your plans that you like to put the names in. So we have, all you do for that is, well, let's see here. I'm going to make all you do for that. Let me make one right here. I'm going to go and make just a theoretical one. Is that we do 23 space John Deere tractors, just something long, and then I hit OK. Now, when I do, because it's a lot of words and it wants to auto size that number or name, it'll look like it's going to disappear, but it doesn't, or it'll look very small one way or the other. So I hit OK, and sure enough, it looks like it disappeared. But if we go over to our text customization and knock it up to, oops, there we go. We want to make that 2 points so it'll fit in there nice and neatly. And that's how you would do that. That's how you would write it in. It'll either, if it's a long name like this, it'll do it nicely where it puts it down below. Let me see if I can add another space in there and see if it'll do a return. Whoops. Let me try it again there. I don't think it liked that extra space. And there we go. So yeah, it still wants to keep the John at top, but you get the idea. Now, the other thing we look at is you have your booths for the same exhibitor separated out, and you organize it like that. But you can, if you like, you can go ahead and do that resizing, and as we show here, it's essentially a 10 by 20 booth, and we just show it here as a singular booth, and it'll show up on our inventory as a singular 10 by 20, which is, I think, useful for your setup guys, because they'll know that it's a specific size and not not two separate booths. They'll know that immediately. And one of the things that happens when you do that is when you hit this report and generate your exhibitor exhibitor list. One of the things that happens when you use the naming convention, it's not a big deal, but I want to show you the example. You'll see that it creates all the numericals when I did my Excel, starting with a smaller number going down to bigger numbers. It creates all the numericals only first, and then it begins your numerical progression with the name booths. Now, if every booth is occupied and you use this naming convention, then it will be in order starting with the one at the top. Now the other thing is, and you'll see here, it says here's your booth inventory. It tells you your length, width, and area. But what it also does is when you sell a booth, it also calculates out the square footages for a sold booth. So in some cases you might want to keep track of the sold square footages you have at a certain sell stage. Now, as with all Excel spreadsheets, you can create the totals down here in terms of your square footages and everything, and that's very simple, but I can show you how to do that if necessary. Let me pull this guy out of the way. Now, I'm going to go ahead and jump ahead just to give you a hint. Now, when you go to our learning library, you'll see this demonstrated too. But I'm going to go ahead and go to our plan control. I'm going to go ahead and load the all grounds. And I'm going to show you a couple other tools. And this is just a teaser for what we'll learn later on. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit. Now, here's some tools, the icon objects and pod control we haven't looked at. With pod control, typically you would use this for you use it for outdoors and the indoor buildings, but you'll see that you are asked the number of booths in a row and the size of the booths you want to use and the number of aisles and the width of the aisles and what's the starting number you want. And then down here it tells you whether you want horizontal or vertical rows and the numbering direction. So, if you have an entrance on the right hand side, you want a number starting from the right hand side and then vice versa. If you have two halls for the same event, you may want the numbering for one hall to take off where the other one ended, in terms of one hall goes from 100 to 500, then the next hall goes from 600 to whatever. For outdoors, we do what we call make a minimum pod. And so I'm going to do that because everything starts out created as a pod. Now I'm just going to arbitrarily, I'm going to make larger size booths, and I'm just making one booth in a row and one aisle. I really don't care about the numbering right now, nor the direction, because with outdoors, typically the layout is not structured like inside of a hall and organized aisles and rows. So I drag this guy over. There it is. That's all it does. If we were to do 2 and 2, it would do like that. But right now we're going to start building for a fairground. I zoom in, and let's say that we want a food tent over here. So I am going to go ahead and say food tent, just like we labeled before with words. I'm going to say we want it 40 by 60, and I'm going to hit OK. But now we're going to go to our pod control. We're going to go to our icon objects. And this is where we have a whole lot of different objects. We made those tabletops you saw with these icons, but you have picnic tables and bleachers and rides and symbols and tents and kiosks and even things like buses and RVs and livestock trailers, things like that. So what we're going to do is, with this activated booth, like we say, just blues around here, we're going to go to our tent. We hold down our shift key and we just click, and there you go. Let's go ahead and look at just one more thing. I don't want to put too much on you, but let's look at what I want to affect on this labeling here. I don't want that background. Sometimes you want a background white just because of the complexity of the background you're using. Sometimes you don't. This time I'll say I don't. I go into text. I don't want a background color, and I want the size to pick up a bit. And I want to go ahead and make it bold so it really shows up. And that's how you would do that. For this one, let's say keep it at 50 by 50, but let's look at a certain ride and say we want to use this ride here. I just hold the shift key down, click it, and there it is. Now we do have this one. Actually, you can see that it shows you the size for the suggested size for the industry, but you can make it any size you want, and you can label it anything you want. So that's how you do that. And now all you do is what we say, borrow from Peter to pay Paul. We would do go to the booth control and do a new. There's another one for us. And now we may make it something else. And we may make it a booth, or we may replace it with a kiosk. Let's go ahead and put a kiosk in there. And there we go. Now, one more thing, and then I'll let you go. This went on a little more. Let me zoom out. I'm going to click on this one, and I am going to go here, and I'm going to make a 300 feet by 500 foot object, and I'm going to say new. Now, I probably put it way down here. Let's see here. I got to zoom out. I may have goofed up. There it is. So what I'm showing you is, let's say you have some property over here that you want to acquire and put another. This is a poor example, and again, this is I'm going to make this smaller. I'm going to make this 90 by 90. So sorry, but I just wanted to give you guys a little head start. Here's 90 by 90. Let's say we wanted to put a new building over here. All right, so I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to take the number out of there. And one thing, if you look over here, you'll see there's a little rotation icon here. So I'm going to go ahead and rotate this like this. I'm going to rotate a little further. There you go. I'm going to play it. There we go. So let's say we wanted to add a building, and you're talking about some renovations or master planning. If you send me the building plan, a pre-built design that you're considering, I can actually put it into your drop-down list of icons. And here's an example. Here's a 90 foot by 90 foot barn and office. If I hold the shift key down and press it, now it wanted to straight rotate, but if I go back here to my booth control, I can see that rotation. Just hit OK and it's back again. So now if you want to start developing property, we can start putting some building designs or things that you might consider in the future. If this footprint that's been proposed is too big, you can go ahead and resize it, take a look and go, well, great idea, but we need a 64 by 64 here. And I may have gone a little too long here. I hope this is helpful. I think this will help when we do a learning session, make it a little more familiar for you. And I'm going to, of course, you're going to have an email from me and with this address and some other things to help you get started, and look forward to working with you. Thanks so much.